Welcome to the Hall Talk with Malcolm Smith. I am your host, Malcolm Smith, the CEO of the National Dump Truck Association. And the Hall Talk show is built to inform, to entertain, and to lift up the dump trucking community that is often overlooked. Here on this show, we will be bringing in great guests that you can learn from, that you can take information from and apply to your business, as well as dive into some industries that you may not have even known about. But today, we have a great guest for you, Andrew Lindsay. And I got a chance to meet Andrew maybe a year or two ago. And I give him a nickname, call him the King of Atlanta, just because of what he's done in Atlanta. He's worked on the Beltline with Astra Group. Him and his dad started a construction company in 1994 that did fairly well. I mean, one of the biggest companies in Georgia, and they expanded to different cities. But they were one of the first ones to do the Beltline. But enough of me talking about Andrew. I'll let him talk about himself. Andrew, how you doing today, man?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. And I really appreciate what you're doing for the hauling industry. As you said, often overlooked, but a vital part of the construction industry. And which I came from, what you mentioned. I started a business in 1994 with my father called Astra Group. It was just two of us in his basement, actually. And we grew that into a large, heavy civil prime, or medium size, I'd say, heavy civil contractor. And we ultimately ended up building things such as the Atlanta Beltline. For those folks that are in the Atlanta area, they may be familiar with that project, but many other public spaces, DOT projects, expanded around the Southeast, and built the Mega Rail project expansion of the Savannah Port. And so a lot of large infrastructure jobs that were heavily dependent on import and export of material, particularly aggregates, and dump trucks was a massive part of our daily lives. And so I saw a need in the space and started a technology business to help the dump truck industry, as well as contractors and suppliers.
Nice, Andrew. Nice. So, let's get right to it, Andrew. Take us back to that first contracting job you had with Astra Group. I know you started with your father, but what was it like? What was the first one you guys did to where you said, okay, we got something here?
Yeah, and I don't know if you and I have talked about this or not, but we started as a tennis court construction company. I had just graduated from University of Georgia. I was a risk management insurance major, Terry School of Business there. And my father was transitioning careers. He owned medical clinics and drugstores. So neither one of us had a background in construction, but he had the opportunity to take on a small tennis court construction company. And so we started getting jobs with apartment complexes. It was a apartment boom in the mid 90s, and we started building tennis courts for apartment complexes. And then he was a business minded guy, had a business degree as well. And we saw that that's a fairly small market. So we expanded into doing all the amenities packages and building pools as well. And then that grew into parks and rec. So we started doing for the city of Atlanta, tennis court complexes or swimming pools or swimming pool renovations. In Gwinnett County at the time, if you remember, was exploding, and the famous Atlanta sprawl was happening, and there was not enough parks and rec infrastructure to support all the population that was moving to the suburbs. And Gwinnett County had the vision of building a lot of parks and recs and amenities for their constituents. And we kind of rode that wave. We did ride that wave. So the parks went from, a couple acres to 5 acres to 10 acres to 50 acres to 100 acres to 250 acres. And we just grew along with them. And during that time, we decided we needed to bring grading in-house because we couldn't get the attention. It was blow and go. Couldn't get a lot of attention from grading contractors. So we brought that in-house. And then that continued to get bigger and bigger. I decided to get into the DOT market and start doing more infrastructure. Went back to Emory University, got my MBA, and got sort of confidence about me to be able to go and acquire some businesses. And we had ended up growing and getting more successful. And so we bought a wet utilities company, meaning sewer and drainage and potable water. And we started building those projects as well, what we called line jobs for municipalities all over the state of Georgia. So it just continued to expand from there. So we went from 2 guys to 200 people by the late 2000s, or probably 2010 or so. We got to about that size.
I see. So as I'm listening, I'm like, wow, that's a long journey. But give the audience a couple of what I call oh shit moments. That's, things that you guys didn't expect, something you guys fought through that was really hard that most wouldn't know you guys go through in construction.
Those that are in it know that it's hard every day. You're living contract to contract, and there's particularly when you're playing in the dirt, there's always unforeseens. And so that's quite challenging. So it's a decision every minute of every day. And it's really about the people, and the people that you have working with you is what construction is all about. But the oh shit moments, I feel like they were weekly, but I think the biggest one where I was really knocked back on my heels, my father and I, who was still with me and operating with me at the time, we had just expanded into doing stuff down into South Georgia and Macon, and had several project managers around the state, and probably weren't watching their budgets closely enough. So they had an anticipated profit on the job, and for those in the business, and it costs a complete accounting. Essentially, how well you're doing on your job based on your project manager's budget and what you spent to date. And we had project managers that weren't following the budgets very well, and all of a sudden we were getting to the end of the year, and we had what we call a write down of a lot of money. And we, at the time, say this was in the early 2000s, at the time, we couldn't take a hit like that. And there was an option there that we say, hey, we're going to pivot and we're going to get out of this business because this is a huge hit. Rather than doing that, we said, okay, we're going to get lean and mean and fight ourselves out of this hole. And unfortunately, we had to cut back on a lot of staff. And it was working 24/7 and pleasing the customer, finishing the job, trying to minimize the losses as much as possible. And it made us stronger. It made us focus more on our budgets, be more rigid about watching every penny every single day. And it made us much stronger. And we grew, the old saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It made us much stronger. And we, went from being a company that was doing under $10 million a year to doing close to $150 million a year. But we almost had to close the doors because of that oh shit moment that we've just lost a lot of money that we didn't realize.
Wow, that's interesting. It's crazy because I was just listening to something about Elon Musk, and everybody knows, the trillionaire Elon Musk. But I was listening to something about Tesla and how they were about to close their doors until he was able to get the contract for SpaceX and really help them grow. But entrepreneurship is hard, man. And as long as you keep fighting every day, you have another day to turn it around. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I don't know a single entrepreneur that hasn't thought they're about to go broke at one point in their career. It's part of it. And one of the things you have to recognize is don't throw good money after bad. If it's really sunk, you need to figure out something else. If your plan A, B, and C aren't working, you need to figure out how to pivot into something else. But I've always told, I told my kids this. It's like, you'll probably never be the smartest person in the room. You may be, depending on the room, but you always have to be the most determined. If you're most determined to make it happen and make it work, you're going to be successful. You can't give up easily because it gets hard. It's hard. Life is hard. You got to keep on grinding every single day.
So Andrew, one thing you bring to this industry, man, which I love, is that you see the industry from both sides. You see it from a construction side, contractor side, as well as a hauler side. You have both perspectives. Before starting TruckIT, when you were in general contracting, what have you seen haulers go through that many contractors haven't recognized?
Well, first I saw it within my own organization, the expectation that you call your hauler at 5 p.m. the night before and say, hey, I need 20 trucks tomorrow without giving any notice, and just expecting that these extremely expensive assets are just sitting around waiting for me as a contractor just to be, pull out of the closet and be ready for you. I saw how our folks were, just having a certain expectation, just whenever at a whim that this trucking availability is going to be there for them, and how hard it is from a dispatcher's perspective to try to adjust to these customers' needs. And then they call at 5 o'clock and say, I need 20 trucks. And then they call at 6 o'clock in the morning and say, oh, never mind, that's 10. I need 10 trucks. And it's like, wait a second, I've got to adjust. And how difficult that is for somebody to place those assets. And I would tell our guys, hey, you're going to get fired as a customer of these haulers if you continue to treat them like that, because they're going to go to where it's known, the work is steady, it's known, and they know when they're going to get paid. And they're a vital part of what we do, right? I don't see hauling in the construction industry is very different than regular freight. You're not just dropping a box off at the front door, right? They're a part of your production. So when a dump truck comes up and they're spreading GAB down for a parking lot or something like that, they're part of the production. So they directly affect the productivity of those machines on the site. They are a partner. They have to be treated like a partner. They have to be communicated with like a partner because they are a partner. If you don't have those trucks, you don't have that material, you don't get the production for that day. So it's very important cog in the wheel of infrastructure or any heavy civil construction.
So to speak on that, you started TruckIT. You had your career with Astra. Within the process of running Astra Group, where did you decide, okay, the ticket paper is a problem, or the paper ticket is a problem? I'm going to spend the next amount of years solving it. What was that like? How did you come to that?
It was actually building the Atlanta Beltline's first contract they ever signed. They signed with me and Astra, and it's called Historic Fourth Ward Park, where if you're familiar with Atlanta, there's something called Ponce City Market, which used to be City Hall East. And City Hall East was owned by the city of Atlanta. They were trying to do a deal with Jamestown, a big developer, but it was constantly flooding with combined sewer, so sanitary sewer and storm drainage. And it was just a mess. And there was a problem where they needed a retention pond. Well, there was somebody who had a great idea. There's a gentleman named Markham Smith who was part of this, who's a great guy and an architect. And he and some others who had offices in the area down in historic Fourth Ward So let's make this into amenity. And instead of doing a big concrete box underground that's going to cost, something like $75 million and cover it over, let's create a retention pond that's a park and an amenity as well. So the site had diesel contaminated soils, diesel in the groundwater, asbestos impacted soils. It had old asbestos tiles all tiled. It was a dumping zone. So we had to go in there and clean it up and get rid of all the contaminated material. Well, that material has to be tracked and there has to be a manifest. So it needs to go from cradle to grave, which is a Class D landfill. And you have to be able to track that. And you get a manifest, a piece of paper from the site, and then you have to get something from the landfill as well. And we have to track that. We have to give it to the customer. The hauler has to control that piece of paper in triplicate and hand it to us. We got 2 copies. He kept 1 copy. And then we would give a copy to the Atlanta Beltline, who ultimately had to show this to the EPD, Environmental Protection Division of the state of Georgia, to show where all this material went because it was regulated. And this was not just a couple of trucks. We had 50 trucks a day hauling this material out for months. And then we had to build this huge retention pond, which was like 56 maybe feet deep, and walls all around it, and create it into a park and retention pond. And so I was just looked at this and saying, hey guys, how many trucks are we getting today? I then say, well, we ordered 40, 30 have showed up, and at the end of the day, 20 are there. Like, well, how come? It's like, well, we don't know. So they started ordering more than they needed, and the trucks would show up, and then they'd start sending trucks home. And so there's a lack of visibility, and it wasn't good for the hauler, and it wasn't good for us in planning and our productivity. So I just watched this whole process when we had 50 trucks a day for months on end, and or approximately. And like, God, there's got to be a better way to have visibility for both, to right size the amount of trucking that affected our productivity, and then knowing in real time how much material that we've hauled out per day. And so the hauler knew the amount of tonnage as well, so they could bill us faster and we could get the bill into Atlanta Beltline. Instead, we were collecting tickets after a couple of weeks and then trying to put it together in spreadsheets. And then the hauling company would put it together in a spreadsheet, and then we'd have a mismatch. And then we'd have to go back and forth. So to reconcile, it took too long. And so it was hard for us to build a belt line and therefore verify the invoice of the sub. So all this had been weighing on me. And then we ultimately closed out the project and paid everything up. And about 3 months after we had closed it out, my hauler came back to me and said, oh my gosh, one of my subs had this envelope of tickets that he had in his truck under a seat, and he forgot to hand in. It was about $30,000 worth of hauling. And I said, well, wait a second. I'll call him John for the sake of this conversation. John, I've already closed it out. I've already billed the job, and I don't have the ability to bill this any longer. I looked at the tickets, looked like it was signed by my superintendent, and ultimately said, okay, we'll pay this. We've got a good relationship. I don't want you to be harmed and what have you, but I've just taken a hit for $30,000 because you didn't get your tickets in for 3 months because of this piece of paper riding around a piece of truck in a truck. So that time I was so frustrated, I approached my lifelong friend, Pace Davis, who was a tech entrepreneur, and said, I've got to solve this problem. I need to have visibility into where my trucks are. I need the hauling company to know if we're going to ask for the trucks, we need the trucks and exactly where we need them, and to be able to digitize these tickets so they can bill us at the end of the week and we can tell the Beltline exactly how much material we're putting in real time, and not have stats of tickets riding around in trucks and be reliant on that. Also, I was like, I need to be able to store this data in a platform that I can allow my client, the Beltline, to see, and they can download and give to the EPD or whoever. Because actually on something called Eastside Trail, EPD had a question maybe 4 or 5 years after just clean up stuff, whatever, paperwork. And we had these tickets stored in Beltline, indefinitely. So Beltline was able to come and get that information from us, and we were able to provide that to the EPD. So that's why I started TruckIT. It was a frustration over a job and the lack of visibility, and that we were the only industry I felt like that was still working on triplicate carbon copy paper when in a digital world. And that was back in 2013. And I still think that probably 90% of the market is still working on paper tickets. But yeah, we started building it in 2014, testing it on Astra Group and some great partners, hauling partners we had, and continued to refine over the years. It was kind of a side project at the beginning, truthfully, until about 2018.
All right, Andrew. So let's talk about from building things to building software. What was the hardest part about that jump?
That's a great question. Yeah, I was used to wearing boots every day, being on the job site, and my language was very colorful. It still is, unfortunately. I haven't been able to break that habit. But and I do actually, I miss the camaraderie. I was having lunch with a guy that used to work for me that's done fantastically well in the industry, and is just actually his. By the way, I sold that other business. I think I've told you, and I've moved on to the software business. But he's done great. He just won a $50 million Beltline job, and he's sort of really proud. That's actually one of my favorite things about having a company, is seeing growing people or giving them the opportunity to grow, and seeing them succeed, whether it was in my business or another business and moving on. That's the most gratifying part about being an entrepreneur as well. But yeah, I got into the IT world, and it was the hours were a little different. Yeah, you didn't start at 6 a.m. A lot of these guys like to code through the night and start later in the day. That was a bit of an adjustment for me. And then remote work. We have people all over the world that work for us. Our head of support's out in Seattle. We've got support agents down in Brazil and Peru and Argentina. We have coders in Europe. So a lot of remote work where construction's hands-on. You can't be remote and be operating a dozer, at least not yet.
Yeah, AI is coming. I've already seen them putting AI in machines, man. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, the automated machines in mines, and trucks in mines, and automated machines are just amazing. In job sites, they have the automated rollers, remote control rollers, and those types of things. But I think the safety aspect, everybody's a little concerned about right now when you have a lot of people around. So, but it's coming. There's no doubt. I've always been an early adopter of technology, and thought that our industry was a little bit behind, kind of a laggard, or we are. I mean, there's a McKinsey report that specifically states that construction is the second slowest to adopt technology behind agriculture. Now, there's certain segments of agriculture and construction that have adopted technology pretty quickly, and it's rapidly starting to increase. But that there's certain areas and dump truck and hauling and bulk materials hauling is one of those that's a laggard within the construction industry that is a laggard as well. So I've made it a mission to sort of try to merge what I call the real world in our business. It's like, this is the guy that's putting the tarp on over the asphalt and putting his chains on for his, so he puts out 6 inches of GAB when he's tailgating it out and doing all that sort of stuff. That's the real world, right? We have to make technology that's for the real world, for the guy that's doing that. They got the man or woman that's doing that. And so I felt like I had a perspective of, I know I can use this technology to make those people's lives easier and the contractors' lives easier, the material suppliers easier, their lives easier, more efficient, but understanding their real problems, right? So transitioning to it is, one beautiful thing about it is I don't stay up all night worrying about the weather as much. If it's going to rain like it is today, I was stuck and I was making no money that next day because it was muddy and we couldn't get anything done and move any dirt. So that's been pretty good. I have less sleepless nights about the weather, but still it affects our clients. So I still am concerned about it, but it's been fun though. It's been a lot of fun. It's a different lens that you're looking through. But what I like is that it's opened up my viewpoint to different markets and all over the country and how they operate and how we can adjust. I realized that the way we did it is not necessarily exactly how they do it in Texas or in the Carolinas or in Florida or in Utah. And so we learned early on to have an adaptable platform for how each one of these little nuances that the different markets, how they operate. And obviously, the different types of trucks, whether in certain areas, whether in Colorado, you're using mostly side dumps, or you're in the middle of Texas and you're using belly dumps because of the wind, or dump trailers or tandems here in the Atlanta area because of different DOT regulations and areas you need to get to. So that's been fun learning all these different businesses and how they operate.
So speaking of operating, for haulers who only ever ran like paper tickets, explain e-ticketing. What does TruckIT do to really mitigate those paper tickets, as well as kind of give us a process of really tell us why we should be using TruckIT to help with our operation?
Sure. So the traditional way, as you well know, is to take a ticket. Say if you're hauling 57 stone, you take a ticket from the quarry and you keep a copy and you give a copy to your client. It's riding around in your truck, and you may be working for another a prime hauler. As you know, it's there's a lot of brokers in this business, or somebody may have 10 trucks and they have a job that needs 20, and everybody helps each other out. And you ultimately have to get that ticket to the person who's sending the invoice into the contractor. So that may be at the end of the day, your truck's not going back to their yard. So maybe every Friday you drop it into a mailbox at their office or whatever it may be. You may have hauled on Monday. They get it on a Friday. They're able to process it that next week, scan it in to a computer, and then put it into an Excel spreadsheet, be able to bill it, reconcile it, and then send it out for billing. So there's a lag there of a couple of weeks when you're doing it manually. I wanted to be able to speed that up. So not only the prime hauler, but the sub hauler and the contractor could have real-time data, like right after they ran the load, by hovering their phone over the ticket, and we use AI to extract that data and have an image of the ticket itself. And so there's no need to go and drive over to their yard and drop it in their mailbox to bill it. They have it in real time in our platform. So that does a number of things for everybody. It allows to bill. You can bill much faster at the end of the day if you'd like, and decrease your days of sales outstanding, DSO is what we call it, meaning your cash. Those tickets represent a check. And if you can get that in faster, it can be billed faster, then you can get your money a lot faster. So if you're a prime hauler, you can bill on that Friday for that week's work instead of the next Friday, and it can increase your cash flow by a week, which is just huge in a asset-heavy business where you've got fuel, you've got maintenance, you have payroll to pay, cash flow is everything. And I say it's small business, cash is king, right? You can't do anything unless you have the cash to operate. So that's our mission, is to digitize this whole ticketing process, and that there's one source of truth. It came off of a certified digital scale from the quarry, and that's how you're billing. Then you have the ability to extract that data and that image of that ticket, and you have that source of truth immediately to be able to bill in real time. So that the benefit to the hauler is obviously get paid faster and have less time back in the office scanning it in, putting it into QuickBooks, or putting it into an Excel spreadsheet or what have you. That gets rid of a lot of error. A lot of times you'll have wrong numbers, and the tonnage, you actually flip flop some numbers or whatever it may be, and then you get a dispute on the other end from the contractor saying, "Hey, this ticket number, I don't have this ticket number. That's not right, or this doesn't match up to what I have." And then a 2-week period goes through where people are trying to figure out what's the correct numbers, and all that time you're waiting for your money. So if you have one source of truth, then the prime hauler, the sub hauler, the contractor, they all have the same information, and it makes the money flow faster.
So speaking of cash flow, going digital, how fast can someone be paid going digital on TruckIT's platform? Because that's what haulers care about. They care about the money aspect. And net 30 will kill a hauler, especially if they don't already have cash flow going. So how does going digital with TruckIT help them, and how fast can they be paid?
Sure. I mean, that's why we all are in business to support our families, right? And you can say, "Hey, great, I've got $100,000 in receivables." Well, that doesn't help you if it's sitting on your books and you don't have the check, you don't have the money to be able to pay your bills, right? So, we have a sister company called Bolton Capital, and when you run through TruckIT, you have the ability to pick all those tickets that you've run that week or that day, however often you want to bill your customer. You pick those tickets and you push it and say factor, and it will go to Bolton Capital, and they'll fund you within a matter of hours once you're already set up in the system, and you get that cash flow immediately wired into your account. So it's through a digital wallet that we have set up for you guys, but it's pretty painless and easy. It costs money, obviously, to do that. And what Bolton will do is give you 90% of the invoice value, and then when Bolton gets paid, they will release that 10% minus their fees to you. So it's 90%, up to 92, depending on the debtor and all that percent of the invoice value within a matter of hours. So you have that operating capital and cash flow to be able to run your business. And if you're using sub-haulers, you can pay them quickly so you can attract those sub-haulers that you have a relationship with. And it creates more loyalty to you, for you, to attract additional haulers because they're coming to you because you're paying quickly. And that's the way I see it, is that people go, first of all, fast money makes for faster jobs, more trucks show up. And if you can grow your business by attracting more haulers, if you're a broker, then you can take on bigger work and you can have certainty of an outcome that you're going to get paid. Therefore, those guys who are working for you know they're going to get paid, they're going to show up. So it's been very successful for our clients, helping them grow their business. And the way, as a contractor, I would want to pay my haulers earlier, but reconciling these tickets and making sure we're paying them the right amount just took time. It would end up being net 30 or 2 weeks or what have you, unless you had a lot of staff collecting those tickets. And then I see a lot of haulers out there that just can't get their bills out for several weeks because of the paper-based process. So our mission is just to speed all of that up, whether you decide to use the financing sister company or just do it yourself and be able to get, have contractors that are willing to pay you faster because you're able to get your bills in and have that one source of truth, and they can pay faster.
Since we're on that topic, this is for the audience because I get these questions all the time. Why do they have to hold our money? That's the thing we hear from haulers a lot. So from a contractor perspective, go down the line of what their process of payment is, the net 30s, the net 60s, the net 90s. Why is it net 30? And could you elaborate how, you guys are not holding our money per se, it's a payment process, and, just kind of expand on what happens during that process so haulers can understand.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to give some insight. And it, just like everything, it depends, right? It may be the size of the contractor and their processes and internal processes that they put in place so they don't make mistakes. Takes a long time. The other issue is working capital for the contractor themselves. So if they are working for a client that's paying them once a month and they have most contracts, it's progress billing. So you're going to bill on the 25th and you get paid probably net 30 after that. So if you're doing the work on June 1st, hauling on June 1st, and that whole week, contractor may not be billing their client until the 25th or 30th of June, and then they won't get paid until the end of July. So when you do the work at the beginning of June, it could be 60 days before you see your money if it's a pay when paid deal. So the contractor just hadn't received the money. That's why they haven't been paying you. And so a lot of the contractors say, hey, I need these guys, so I'm going to pay them early as long as I can verify all these invoices and that I'm going to get paid for their work. But other contractors, a lot of big contractors, they're paying for millions of dollars for their equipment and crews and all their things. And they're saying, I can't front all this money if I've got, $1 million of the hauling this month. I can't front it. As much as I'd like to, I got to wait until the client gets me paid so I can turn around and pay my haulers. That there's a large segment of the industry that is saying, I'm choosing not to use my working capital to front this money for the client, or I just don't have the ability to. And so that's where I saw an opportunity to fill that gap. It's like, okay, you want the hauler and contractor relationship to remain the same. After all, this is a relationship-based business, and TruckIT doesn't want to be the one has the relationship with your client or is trying to sell trucking services to your client or anything like that, or to your subs for that matter. We want to be a platform and a tool for you to use to enhance those relationships with your clients and with your subs. And if we can provide the working capital as well, that floats that time between the time you do the work and the time you get paid, because contractor either doesn't have the ability to, or it has to use that working capital for something else, then it helps both parties. But I will say, money costs money. So haulers need to think about that when they're think about terms. Let's just choose $100 an hour, right? If that's your baseline, then you need to think about, as a hauler, in my opinion, am I going to get paid net 30, net 45, net 60, or net 15? Because your price has to change associated with the amount of time your money is going to be out there outstanding, right? There's two parts of every contract. It's how much, three parts really. The specific performance, the amount of money for that specific performance, and the terms in which you get paid. And all of those matter when you're pricing something. So you have to understand that cash flow to be able to put a price to it. And if the contractor's saying, hey, I'm not going to be able to pay you, maybe they'll say net 30, but it ends up being net 45. A lot of you guys probably experience that. You need to put that in your calculation and say, well, maybe it's $105 an hour versus $100. Or I did a lot of deals with the haulers that said, if you pay me every 2 weeks, instead of $100 an hour, I'll do it for $90 an hour. And that's a big 10% discount. I mean, that's huge. So as a contractor, I'd say, yeah, I'll take that. We just, have to hurry up and figure out and I'll use my working capital to pay you. And it helps everybody, but a lot of contractors don't have the ability to do that. And if you go to outside capital, like if you're using Bolton Capital, it's much cheaper to take that $100 an hour, get floated by a Bolton Capital, and take those terms from the contractor, and Bolton Capital waits to get paid by the contractor. That makes sense.
Yes, it goes into talking about dump truck operations. We spend fuel. We spend, we're one of the only industries that spends exasperates a lot of resources on the front end and waiting to be paid on the back end. So many things happen during that time. I'm talking about maintenance, tires, drivers, insurance, parts. A lot of times we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. And so cash flow is important, and it definitely helps us stay afloat when, things happen. We can put our trucks in maintenance, and we have a situation on a Thursday or Friday. We have the cash to be able to put our trucks in service, to be able to get them back out, to be ready by Monday. So the faster we can get our cash, that's how we stay on the road. That's how we're able to be ready for the contractors when they need us. But, slow pay, it really hurts our operations. So, the dump trucker world really has to pay attention to their cash flow.
Oh, and it's a tough spot that a lot of haulers are put in, because maybe the contractor just doesn't realize, or just isn't consciously thinking about, hey, this is tomorrow's payroll for this hauler. This is so they can fill up the diesel. This is paying the rent or paying the mortgage. I used to go literally when we were first starting out to municipalities and go to the city manager or whatever and say, hey, this is my rent payment or mortgage payment. And because somebody in accounts payable was out of town for 2 weeks doesn't mean I don't need to get paid. I need to get paid. This is real world stuff. This is how people pay their bills. We need this cash quickly. I've been there. I was there for the first decade of my career, trying to figure out, how to survive and scrape by. I mean, we were, I think the first year at Astra, we did a total of like $80,000 in revenue trying to figure it out. And that's total revenue. That's not profit. That was total revenue. We were eating pork and beans, and that was about it, living out of a basement. So I've been there. I've definitely been there.
All right, so Andrew, I keep going back into TruckIT. I want to go deeper into TruckIT. What do you guys have on the horizon? Where do if you can share that, where do you see TruckIT? What's in the future for TruckIT? What are you guys doing? What have you added to the platform? Really talk about TruckIT and where you guys see the platform going.
Yeah, so we're always trying to improve, right? We're always trying to get better, to anticipate what the market needs and talk to our customers about what do they want, what do they need, how can we be more helpful to you guys to be more successful. I say we're a tool, right? If we're not making you money, don't use us, right? There's no sense in having technologies for the sake of having bells and whistles. It's there to make the business who's using our tool more money. So we asked them, what are your problems? What do you want solved? And we have several projects in the works. And I won't go into details about them, but some of it has to do with risk mitigation in the industry. As I told you earlier, I was a risk management insurance major. Never got into that business. I got into the riskiest business I could find, which is contracting. And really, contracting is all about mitigating risks through contracts and understanding expectations on either side. And by the way, as an aside, and you and I have talked about this in the past, I highly encourage all of the listeners to make sure that they have some sort of contractual agreement between themselves and the customer. And all it is setting expectations. You're saying you're going to have insurance. They're saying they're going to pay you a certain rate for specific performance. And it just clears up everything, and it avoids fights later on. And I think it's highly important for everybody to understand that. But there's risk mitigation, which is something that have been focused on, particularly in light of the new Supreme Court ruling to do with the freight industry that you're probably aware of, that is holding these brokers responsible for those that are hired, and it's not as yes, exactly. So that's it has an impact in the freight world, and I haven't heard it spoken of too much in our world, in the construction bulk hauling, but it's going to affect us. And
yes, negligent selection. I've been sounding the whistle, man. This stuff is getting really serious, and we've been really trying to get haulers and contractors to understand that for a long time, the older road industry, the brokers have had a kind of like a veil. They weren't responsible for if any accidents happened, for any trucks that they may have put on any jobs or anything. But now with that court case, it's pretty much said, no, you guys can be pulled into a lawsuit for negligent hiring or negligent selection, meaning the person who hired this company should have vetted this company and made sure that, they didn't have any things that could possibly be risky in their operation that could cause an accident. And, these insurance companies, they're even cracking down on this stuff because they're the ones that's paying out these nuclear verdicts. And so we definitely have been sounding alarms, and it's definitely becoming a serious thing. For an example, we talk about brokers and dump trucking. That is as simple as a guy having 5 trucks and a contractor asking him, hey, can you go and get me 15 more trucks? Yeah, he says yes because he's thinking about the money. That's the incentive. So yes, he's trying to get as many trucks as he can. He's going to call his buddies. He's going to call, people that he feels that he can put on the job. Well, what happens if one of those trucks do something crazy? That guy that he knew put a driver in his truck that he didn't properly vet. now something happens and the broker who was supposed to check over all the information, the driver files, all of this stuff, he never did. And all he did was check a COI. And so the COI does not tell you about the company and the operation and who's behind that wheel. So we've been seeing falsified COIs. We've been seeing where it says COI may have $1 million coverage. Mm-hmm. When we look on the declaration page, we see 500,000. And if a company is only checking COI, you are opening up yourself to be exposed to all of that liability. If you're not even checking the broker stuff that you choose, you're opening up yourself to be exposed to all that liability down the chain. And that is what we have been really sounding the whistle on.
It is. And there's some unscrupulous agents out there that will change that accord or do something. And the contractors or the brokers, like, okay, I've got this in the file and it should be okay. It says it's good through the end of the year. Well, you may get that certificate and whoever you're using may never pay that, and it may get canceled, or they may change it from a $1 million policy down to a $300,000 policy. And you've got that old piece of paper that you're relying on that's not worth the ink that's on the paper. And so I'm so glad that you're spreading the word and doing what you're doing. By the way, you're doing great things for the industry, and thank you for that, because our industry hasn't had a voice and an advocate. It's always been just these independent haulers trying to figure it out on their own, I feel like. And there's not really strong associations that you're creating to help and to talk as a group, like, what do we need to do? And insurance is a massive issue in this industry. And it's because there's a lot of losses, truthfully. There's a lot of beds that don't come down and take down power lines. There's all the accidents that can happen because we're not just dealing with, as I said, dropping it off at a box at the front door or a loading dock. We're going on to live construction sites with moving equipment. You're a part of the actual production of that job site. You're backing a tandem up to a paver, and the paver's pushing you. You're part of that production. So it is a little higher risk, and it does cost more money, but how do we mitigate that as much as possible? And then, as you're saying, how does the contractor know that whoever's showing up on their job site has appropriate insurance? Because it's massive risk out there, and it needs to be tracked, it needs to be verified, and you need to know that you have a responsible hauler that's on your project. So I think it's going to be highlighted, and you're highlighting it, which is fantastic. But it's going to be highlighted more and more. People figure out how much risk they're taking on as a contractor and as a broker when you're just going and saying, "Hey, I'm just shotgun spreading this out to whoever, and just come show up with a truck because it got dispatched through whatever." And I've got a random truck showing up. That's why I think relationships in this business, again, it goes back to controlling the relationship with the contractor. They have confidence that you have the ability to do the job, and that you have the relationships with your subs. We started out at the beginning when I had this idea from a contractor's perspective. I was like, well, I'm going to make this into a marketplace. And you may disagree with me on this. We've had these conversations in the past, but a marketplace where I'm connecting the supply and the demand, because there is a disconnect between the supply and the demand sometimes. But I got the feedback from our customer base is that they were the prime haulers / brokers that, like, hey, I built my career making these relationships with these subs, and I make sure that they're vetted, and I make sure that they can back up to the paver and do a good job. They're not going to be causing a problem for my customer. And I have that relationship, and I have that relationship with my contractor. I don't want all of my sub haulers to be on your platform and have somebody else be able to use my sub hauler that I spent my whole career building up, building this up. And I said, well, what about the sub hauler that needs more work and they can't provide it? I said, well, there's a lot of other relationships that they can make, and we can help in that way as well. So we pivoted away from a straight marketplace where the brokers and sub haulers were just bringing their whole group onto the platform, and then other people, their concern was that we were going to start selling into the market to the contractors and what have you, which wasn't our plan. We were just trying to connect supply and demand. But that could happen, right? Somebody could say, hey, I'm now a digital broker and I'm selling into the marketplace. And these guys were like, hey, I want to maintain control. And so we pivoted. This was back in 2019, I think, that we said, we're just a tool, right? You just use us to make your business more efficient, to be able to dispatch to your subs, to be able to digitize the ticketing, to be able to invoice faster, to be able to control what's going on in your job sites, be able to tell the customer what's going on the job site, be able to give access to your customer if you'd like to see your trucks that are running on their job site so they don't call you every 5 minutes and ask where they are, et cetera. So relationships, understanding that your client, understanding that you are hiring the right haulers, and whether it's through your verification process and your platform or whatever platform they use, just having that peace of mind that, okay, I know that this is a verified hauler and they have the appropriate insurance it's going to be more and more important, I think, to contractors when they're hiring.
And yes, I saw was a missing piece was just a contractor. I'll say this: I take my hats off to you guys, the platforms that you guys created. You connecting them to the operation and the money. I do not want to be in the lane that you guys are in. But what I did see was an issue was
it's
a contractor doesn't want to call 31 truck guys, 30 guys who have one truck. That's a lot. So yeah, they go through a broker. They'll say, hey, can you get me 15 trucks? If you only have 15 or 10, can you go and get me 15 more? And yeah, it sounds good until there's no verification or qualification that company should be on that job. And this Supreme Court case has really shined light on, we need to properly vet all of our subs or sub haulers that we're putting on these jobs, because it could cause lawsuits. It can get messy. It can slow projects down. It just can really get bad, and you're exposing yourself to liability that you didn't even know about. And so that is why we have created this verification for our members. We check their file. We call it the 5 pillars. And we check business readiness, insurance readiness, making sure they have the trucks, the equipment, the proper equipment to be on your guys' jobs. We mirror it through, what does the contractor want? What does the FMCSA want? What does the insurance carriers want? And we put it all together so we know that we have a strong hauler. They have a strong business. When renewals come back, insurance renewals come back, we know that they've been properly monitored throughout the year, so we don't have to do much cleanup. So, we really have created this process, and it has helped members really get the jump on other haulers because their information is already together, so they can just send it immediately. It's also it's like what it presents them as, a clean running business. And so this verification has really helped us as an association, really helped our members really stand to contracts and protect the contractors as well.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you 100%. And it just takes one accident to put you out of business because you were brokering a truck that you didn't know, and they have a terrible accident. There's a death or something. And then you get sued for, $5 million or something like that. And you're done. Right. And I know this from real world experience when I was a contractor, because I had a sub that we had the insurance certificate on file, and one of their carpenters that was working, I think they were doing building a concrete wall, and they're building the forms, and he hurt his back somehow, had a back claim. And we got the claim and said, okay, well, we were identified by our sub, and their insurance should take care of it. And ends up the insurance agent forged the certificate. And ultimately, we had to pay $150,000 for this accident because we had a piece of paper in our file that was not legit. And that taught me an important lesson early on, to always check and verify and get with the broker, the insurance broker. And so these are some of the things that I've had, those real world experiences that I'm bringing to the platform to assist our customers and say, hey, let's make sure everybody's covered. What type of insurance? Like if you work at Atlanta airport, it used to be $10 million for a hauler. They had to have you may know this better than me now, but it was a $10 million insurance. It's still 10 million. I'd heard that maybe it went to 5. I don't know, but
I think it's still 10 million. Yes, 10 million.
Ridiculous. But I guess if you're working on they call airside, inside the gates, that they require that. And that's a huge lift. You have to, if you are a hauler that's going to work there, you have to charge more. If you're carrying $10 million of the insurance, but you may be turning around to a sub that's carrying, 300,000 or $1 million, and you're putting yourself at risk at that point too, if they're not carrying the same insurance. So, it's something I encourage all your listeners to pay attention to. There's two sides to the business. There's the operations, getting it done, knowing how to do it. And I'm sure all your listeners know exactly how to operate efficiently their fleet or their truck. But then there's operating the business as well. It's knowing your profit and loss statement. It's knowing your balance sheet. It's understanding if you're making money or not, and looking forward and projecting, am I going to make money on this job the way I priced it? Don't just price it to pay your diesel the next day. You need to be a sustainable business that goes on and on and on. And, contractors might not like what I'm saying here, but you do have pricing power, right? There's a need for the trucking. And I used to have project managers that would buy out hauling for, say, a quarter less a ton. We're paying by the ton. Say, okay, we're shifting the rest of the hauler. We're going to pay them at the time, whatever it was, $5 a ton. So, well, I got somebody for $4.50 or something. So, well, that's great. You save $50 a ton, but are they going to show up every day? Are they going to get the amount of aggregate? You needed 2,000 tons a day, and if they bring you 1,000 a day, you've gotten half the production that you needed that day. So did you really save 50 cents, or did it cost you about $5,000 to $10,000 a day on down production? So you have pricing power if you perform. Say, I guarantee you, I will get you this much aggregate in a day. And a contractor, the smart contractor, will say, yes, that's what I need, and that's going to save me money because you're performing. I know I signed all off.
No, it's good to hear it from your perspective because we have some haulers here who it's a split group. You got some 1 truck guys, some 2 truck guys, but you also got 30 plus truck guys, and to hear them talk about bidding is totally different. It's a totally different ball game. 30 truck plus guys, they kind of lead with they can perform. They know that they can perform and they consistently perform. Well, the 1 truck, 2 truck guy, he's trying to get on to maybe his first opportunity, and he's, maybe bidding low, or that 30 truck guy, he knows his rate and he's going to stick by it. And so, we really, what we've seen is reliability has been the way to negotiate. And, that's the way to really get your foot in the door and bid. If you can continuously be reliable and show up and do a good job, you can negotiate because you are taking the headache away from the contractor, knowing if, man, if I call 10 trucks, 10 trucks gonna show up. So reliability is what the thing we've seen has been really been able to cut through the noise and business name your rate.
Yeah, the worst thing from a contractor's perspective is a commitment to have, say, 10 trucks, and all of a sudden, you're sitting there looking at 7 a.m. like, well, where are they? Where are they? And then all of a sudden, say, oh, and they took another job that was paying a little bit more. Like, oh, we can't make it today. That's hugely expensive, and that hauling company probably won't be used again, right? Unless they absolutely have to. They go to the bottom of the list. So doing what you say you're going to do, if you commit to a job, actually showing up is a really big deal for a contractor, right? And they'd rather pay more for certainty of outcome because there's a lot of other planning that's going around the delivery of that materials, and a lot of assets, crews, schedules, and a lot of plans that are going around about what you're doing, what you're providing to that job site. So, as you said, if you have the ability to perform and you're consistently performing, you have that pricing power for sure. And the smart contractors I talk to them, they want to see the haulers succeed and make money. They understand they're important to this industry, hugely important. Last Monday, I was talking to Russell McMurtry, is the commissioner of the DOT for the state of Georgia. And we were talking about this issue, and I was saying that the cog that makes this infrastructure, all these $1 billion projects happen that you're letting, is the hauling industry. Without getting the aggregate, getting the asphalt, getting the...
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's because I passionately believe it. And he agreed, and he was saying, this is before his speech. And he got up and he was saying his speech, and he looked over at me. It was like, Andrew and I were just talking about this, but we're going to have a problem with getting the aggregates and all the materials that we need with haulers. We're going to need more good hauling companies here coming up through the end of 26 and for several years. So you may see people in the Georgia area, new entrants coming from around the country to fill this need.
Oh, they already out, man. It's people, part of the association that's coming, from different states. We've been to really put people in different states and bring them to Atlanta. It's a lot of work that's coming in Atlanta. Especially with the road work, they're really pumping money into the road work. But these data centers, man, have really been big. And if you are in a city with a data center or a couple data centers, that is some lucrative work. But they're talking about an AI bus and all this. I say, hey, get your trucks on these data centers while you can. There's some long-term work. Even if they've stopped the production of the data center, they still are going to continue it. They're doing it in stages. And it is, 5 years, 6 years type long year, multi-year work. And if you have a couple of trucks you want to put on, that's what we've been assisting with, helping our members get to these different projects.
Labor, trucks, there's going to be a fight for resources, and again, that's pricing power as well, right? So I think if you're in Georgia, you and I are both sitting in Atlanta, so that we're talking about Georgia mostly. I know you're national, and you have folks all over, as do we. We're in 27 states, and we actually have customers down in South America and up in Canada as well, at Cayman Islands. But different markets are hot, and Georgia has been hot for a long time. It's number one state to do business in, and it has been for a decade.
I believe it.
Russell and his team have done a phenomenal job of preparing for this growth. And as he stated in his speech on last Monday, if it seems like there's more people on the road in Atlanta than there used to be, it's because there are. And we're trying to keep up with all the volume of cars because more and more people continue to move. And I think, I could be getting this wrong, but I think an additional 1.8 million people by, I think he said 3035. And that's why all these big expansions and these data centers, it's like a gold rush. I mean, they just are saying, hey, go, go, go as fast as you can. We need to get it up. Need to get it up. And I, like you, I'm not sure how long it's going to last. Some people I talk to say, we've got 5 years at least of just booms. I know a company that has doubled in size, and they're already a multi-billion-dollar business contractor. They doubled in size from last year because of data center building. I mean, it's just, it's crazy. When you're going from 4 billion to 8 billion because of data center work it's insane. But yeah, it's keeping everybody busy, and there's high demand for hauling. So if you're in this space, understand your profitability, price it so you're profitable and you can succeed. And then having tools, whether it's TruckIT or another platform, to be able to make it easier for your customer to say, here, I've got all of these tickets digitally on a platform. You can download them. You know exactly your quantity that's been delivered today because you have access to see how much quantity has been delivered. That is an additional feature or selling feature that you can sell to your customer and add a little bit of pricing power on top of, hey, I show up on time. You can see where my trucks are going to be and where they're going to show up, because that'll allow you to plan your excavators, your dozers, et cetera, because you can see my line of trucks coming from the quarry and they know exactly when they're going to show up. So that's another way you can make more money by using digital tools. And I completely understand. I don't want to own the whole digital dispatching and e-ticketing world. That would be great, but that'd be ignorant of me to think that. And I talk to our competitors, and we all agree that it is so underserved that probably only 10% of the market has adopted this type of technology. So those adopters that start adopting this early on, whether it's TruckIT or another platform, are going to be the ones who succeed, I think, and get those jobs and have that pricing power and have the visibility to be able to get a bunch of this work in Georgia. I mean, our clients in Georgia continue to grow and grow and grow.
All right, Andrew. So this is what we call a lightning round. In lightning round, I'm gonna give you two different choices. You pick one. So whichever choice you like best, that's how, that's your choice. So lightning round, question number one. Coffee or energy drink at 5 a.m?
Coffee.
Okay, next. Yes or no question. Paper ticket bonfire, yes or no?
Yes, absolutely.
First truck you ever drove or rode shotgun in?
Probably first truck I drove was a friend's old 1958 that had 3 on the tree, where you had to change gears on the tree there, and it was a manual. So that was old school back in the late 80s. That was the first one I ever drove, which was interesting and fun to drive. But big trucks, I think I actually drove a refrigerator delivery box dry van one summer as a job, delivering refrigerators and washing machines and stoves and stuff like that. So that was the first bigger truck I drove.
Okay. Atlanta traffic or muddy job site? Pick your battle.
Atlanta traffic. Can't make any money on a muddy job site.
Okay. Most underrated job on a hauling operation?
I would say the dispatcher. If you're dispatching more than 10 trucks, the quality of the amount of phone calls that man or woman takes and the amount of grief that they take, I think that is the most underrated job and the toughest job in this industry. Everything's so dynamic, ever changing, and that's part of our mission, is to help those folks have a better quality of life. Truthfully, you're taking calls at 10, 11 o'clock at night and again at 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's ever changing. So I think that's, they don't get enough appreciation, truthfully, from the contractor's perspective. Absolutely.
Okay. Last question. If you weren't building TruckIT, what would you be doing?
Fishing.
Fishing. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think probably spending time with my family. But I guess I would have to do something to try and survive and pay the bills. So I'd probably be back into the construction world, but I'm having too much fun doing this.
Well, Andrew, thank you for coming, man. Hey, any lasting thoughts? Anything you want to say to the audience, about TruckIT? Anything? This is your shameless plug.
First, again, I want to thank you for what you're doing for the industry. Hopefully your audience continues to grow and grow because you're becoming a voice in this industry, a trusted voice. I've gotten to know you and really a good person, which is necessary in this world. So thank you for that, because we need a trusted voice out there in the marketplace to help the industry. And then, those folks that are interested in digital platforms, and of course, I think we have the best and the most robust and the most user-friendly and all of those sort of things. But if you are thinking about making that change to digital to increase your cash flow, you need working capital, please reach out to us. It's www.truckit.com, TRUCKIT.com. And somebody will get back in touch with you. But we have a very simple pricing model. We charge per truck per month. So we're not like a percentage of your revenue. We see it as a tool that you just pay a flat rate for, and we want you to grow and grow and grow, and you're not going to be penalized for making more money, making more revenue. So it's a simple flat rate for your truck every month. And then there's if you're using sub trucks, we charge just on the day that you're using that sub truck, not on a monthly. So it's a per day charge every time you dispatch that sub truck. So very simple model, very clean and easy, and expectations of what you'll be paying every month. And as I said, if we're not making you money, don't use us, because that's what we're here to do. And feel free, any of your audience members, feel free to ask for me, Andrew Lindsay. I'm the CEO and founder, but I'm nothing but a salesperson for TruckIT, and I love to talk to our customers and get feedback. So love to hear from any of you.
And Andrew, that's the one thing I love about you, man. You're still personable, man. You still talk to all the customers. You really are one-on-one with them. You don't just pass them off to anybody, man. That's one thing I really do appreciate about you, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, and you and I are similar that way. It's just like those are the folks, and I used to say this in construction industry, that we have project managers and you have all this hierarchy and stuff. It's like, who's making us that money and making the project go around? That guy in that shovel over there. That's Fred. He's the one, not you, behind the computer. I mean, although you have your place, I wasn't denigrating what they were doing, but I was saying, hey, the money is made and lost in the field. It's the person who's touching the work and doing the work. That is, you can't outsource that to India, right? You can't get you or wherever you're outsourcing. That's what makes the economy go around. It's the people that, and I think more and more people are recognizing that with pushes towards trade schools and all that sort of stuff. It's absolutely necessary. It drives our economy. The construction business is a major driver for our economy. And literally the people who are driving the trucks are the ones who are driving the economy. So they're my favorite people to talk to. So that's why I enjoy talking to folks, because I think that they're making the world go around, literally. So happy to talk to anybody.
Well, Andrew, it's been a pleasure, man. It was a lot of stuff I did not get to today, but we definitely want to bring you back, and got some more questions I want to really talk to you about. But yeah, I'm sure the audience is happy with what they heard today. I know that the information about TruckIT and the platform, it really can help save, and as well as Bolton Capital can really help save a hauler's operation, can tighten it up, can make them present themselves more presentable to contractors and help with their cash flow. So, hey, again, Andrew, thank you for today, man. We really appreciate you coming on.
I'd love to come back and see how things evolve and your opinions on the marketplace. And hopefully the association continues to grow and grow because you're providing a valuable service. So love to see it. Love to talk to you some more. Thanks for having me.